Wow, what has happened in the industry that this guy hasn't seen ain't worth seeing. Dan Richardson came to see me at an event maybe 7 years ago. Liked what he saw, became a coaching client, went and implemented everything that he saw, and has gone on from strength to strength to strength to strength. And it's been an honor to see Dan grow as a business owner, as a marketer, and I still see the stuff that we taught him way back in the day. He's evolved with our coaching program as we've gone through the years. It's been great to see Dan absolutely smash it. So guys, business owner, salesperson, influencer, persuader, just an all-around good dude as well. I have raised a glass and shared a bourbon with this man as well. This is Dan Richardson, folks. You want the normal real estate training you've been told a million times? Make cold calls, knock on doors. Best be switching off now, because in this podcast, we go out of the box using unknown tactics, primarily, that the real estate industry's never heard of, in order to get you called in more often, convert those listings, and get more success without the painful cold calling. Listen up, we're in for a ride. This is Real Estate Renegades. That's Dan Richardson from South Australia, mate. Thanks for hanging out, bud.
It's good to be here, mate.
Look at you. Now, you're not going to judge me on my REO Speedwagon jacket.
I've come to know what to expect, mate. So.
Cool, mate. So, folks, as you know, I was bringing you the leading agents and principals from around the world and picking their brains, what makes them tick and what makes you successful. So, mate, let's get into it. You know, you've been hanging around us. Actually, for the guys who don't know you, man, give us the journey of kind of where we met. I mean, it was years ago, probably 2011, 12 or something. Where were you at that time? Give me the Dan Richardson story up until kind of when we met and then up until now.
Well, I'd only just started my own business probably a year and a half or so before, and I was a sole operator. I was by myself with a property manager and just doing everything, doing admin. The accounting, everything. So, that was where we were really at. And, I'd always had pretty good traction as a salesperson. And
you'd won some awards in your early years before you started your own deal?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was with the professionals group for a long period of time, and that was great. That was a great upbringing, I suppose, if you call that in the industry. I made their prestige club pretty quickly. I think in my first year with them, that gave me really good grounding. But then it was time to sort of evolve and start my own thing. And I started originally under another business name to what I'm operating as now. And then I realised, we wanted to do business ownership. I think it's for me. And thought, well, if we're going to give it a crack, we're going to give it a real crack. And I think I was trawling through Facebook, and I think I saw a picture of Danny Hayes, and then I saw a picture of you, and I thought, that's the guy from A Current Affair.
Oh, you remember when I was on A Current Affair?
That's the hypnosis guy.
Wow. That article got me so much traction, it's not funny. So
oh, absolutely.
I'm glad that I didn't know that was the lead that got me in the door with Dan Richardson.
It was, and I saw you had an event on it. It was at the Greek Club, I think, in Brisbane.
Right, yes.
And I did a bit of research on who you were working with. I thought, oh, that's probably worth going, and went along, and the rest is history. We just went.
So you flew from South Australia to Brisbane, so it's no small kind of investment. But what I love from yourself is what you got from there was completely different to anything you'd seen in real estate training before. Tell us about what shifted from where you were thinking then, what you learned there from, I think Chris Gilmore was speaking and a couple of Danny Hayes was speaking at that event. What did you take away from that you came back to South Australia and implemented?
That I wasn't marketing myself correctly, or pretty much to the level of which was required to be an agent of note in any particular area. One of the things I always really focused on as an agent was taking over a geographical area as it's drummed into you as you're coming up through. You've got a door knock, you've got a cold call, and I really, really dislike that. And
So prospecting is where you were sort of coming to us,
yeah.
And you thought, wait a minute, can I find a way to get them to come to me?
Yeah, exactly. And we were going into markets, we were operating in markets that are highly competitive, some of the best agencies in the state. And we just needed to, I looked at that and I said, well, look, what are these guys doing and what else can I do? And that's what I really took away from that, is that at the time I found in my markets in South Australia that no one was really operating, doing the things that say, the Gilmore practices. And I no apologies for the fact that I just simply went, I'll do that here. And pretty much just carbon copied everything I learnt there. I remember the hotel room that night. I went out for you guys.
Yeah, we had a drink. Yeah.
I went to Edgar and I was all abuzz and I high-fived everyone. I went back to my hotel room and I wrote down literally 13 or 14 pages of just to-do list and just went back the following day and just started going boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And that brings us to,
to now. And I love, because we've had Chris, of course, on the show and I've worked with Chris as we both have. What I love about Chris is he learned some stuff from me and he went away and implemented. And what he got back was an improvement on what I taught him. Yeah. And what I loved is when you copy off him, you improved some of the things of Chris. And Chris goes, that bloody Richardson from South Australia, like the couple of strategies. And so it's almost like we're always trying to one-up each other. Yeah. But at the end of the day, what that ends up with is communities better served.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's the great thing about it. And I think it's probably, it is a little bit of one-upmanship, but I think it's also a case of making it your own. You want to put your own spin on it. And if you're going to do that, you want to go, well, is it relevant to my market? Yes. Okay. How do I make it so that I'm not just being a carbon copy of someone else? Because, if then another agent comes down and does that and then they're a carbon copy, then you've got two agents operating in the same market. So, it was always looking at things and going, okay, how can we improve and how we can evolve those practices like, the flyers and
well, that was the next step. I was going to say, so give us some examples to give the crew some real meat. What's you mentioned flyers. Let's start with that. So, historically, if any of us look in our letterbox, we got a pile a mile thick of flyers, and most of them never get read because they're in with all the junk mail. What are some of the unique principles you've learned about how to do flyers differently than what's historically been done so that they actually work, that Dan Richardson gets recognised everywhere, down the Bolo Club or whatever it is? Yeah. Tell us about some of the differences.
There's a lot, and I suppose one of the things I would always look at in my market was the quality of what was being put out. The quality and the content, and let's take a just listed DL flyer for instance. You're getting that just listed generally 1 to 2 weeks after the property has been launched, and in my market where the average is, the average days on market right now is about 20 to 40 days, depending on which suburb. The property's probably already sold. A lot of text and a lot of blurb, and really, you had to really
microphone glass to see who's listening.
You had to really hold it up, and I thought, well, all I want to do is throw this away. So I started looking at going, okay, well, what's going to make people probably just hold that thing for another 5 seconds.
It's enough to see your face.
Yeah. So I just thought, okay, well, DL, okay, well, if people are going to do DLs, I'll do A5s. And then people started doing A5s, so I started doing A4s.
Right. Anything to be a different one.
Yeah, exactly. So, bigger, I suppose, bolder. I just looked really at what everyone else was doing and thought, I'm not going to do that. And specifically, that was, testimonial worked really well. More than, and I'll be the first to admit, I looked at a lot of that stuff when I came up to Brisbane, and I got back and I went, and in the back of my mind, that little chirper was going, that won't work.
Wow. And testimonials was one of them, really?
Yeah, it was, absolutely. The testimonial and just the constant. So I stopped doing just lists and I just did solds.
Yep.
Sold. Yep. And every week, every house in the area.
Yep.
Now, at the time, I wasn't selling 52 houses a year. So I looked at the stock that I had, and I thought, well, I haven't sold 52 houses this year personally, but I have sold 52 houses over the course of, say, the last year and a half or so, and not 52 houses in that area. So I simply went, well, why don't I just take the address away and just put the house there, happy face, testimonial, my face, and before too long, I had people started saying, "Oh, you're the real estate guy."
Yeah.
One guy even said to me, I got really embarrassed because he said, "Oh, you're famous. You're everywhere." And I just said, I went a bit sheepish.
Oh shucks.
Yeah. But I think,
thanks, Twiddle.
Yeah. I think just people relate to people, and they go, social proof, as you always speak about, is an amazing thing, and just to constantly reiterating that, because one thing I've learned about someone who's selling their home, they want to sell with someone who's selling. I think that's what really started getting me, the call-ins, and when the phone started actually ringing, it was like, what's going on here? Like, people are ringing me from the suburb.
Yeah, geez, I don't have to prospect.
Yeah, and it took time.
Yeah, of
like,
course
it wasn't
it does,
like I
yeah.
didn't start dropping flies and then bang.
Yeah, it's a good point. What sort of incubation period would you say from the day you start? Because you were saying you're doing it weekly, and that's the formula, you know. Weekly to that formula you're saying, A4, testimonial on the back. What sort of incubation period do you tell your guys? Because I remember one of your guys, Brady, when he was saying after like 8 months, mate, I'm just not quite cracking it or whatever. But then, you know, I remember you telling me, I think maybe 3 or 4 or 5 months after that, sort of at the year, you know, maybe year and a bit mark. But so tell us about the incubation period.
It was 18 months easily. I think, you know, I did jag a couple in the first. And keep in mind, I'm talking about in a very specific geographical area that we added onto the business. So aside from doing the standard practices, databasing and constantly, you know, listing from open homes and things like that, this was in addition to that. So, but that started to occur. I started to become, I suppose, known in from about 12 to 18 months. I think from that actual that process, I jagged one really, really quickly. It was like the worst house in the suburb. It was like my foot went through the floor. It was bad.
It was not figuratively, literally.
Yeah, literally. I opened the door and I went, "This is marvelous," and foot went through the floor. And then to be 100% honest, in that area, I did not then list one property for about another 9 months in that suburb. But as soon as that, I don't know what occurred, but the floodgates just opened, and we just started looking at that one geographical area, and you know, I mean, and now in that pocket, you know, we control 43% market share in that suburb. We're as known as the biggest agencies in the country, and you know, I am a true local. You know, I walk down the street, I get invited to barbecues, I hang out with them, and it's just really that single process. And a lot of people probably looking, going, "Yeah, that won't work." But I tell you what, anything applied with a system around it and with consistency, you know, will eventually, you know, see the results. So 18 months before I became, you know, number one in that particular area. So and Brett was the same. Brett went through a process probably a little bit longer because he had a very competitive patch. But you know, he now controls and is you know called in you know, on a regular basis in those areas, and that allows us to as well. I mean, you know, obviously that business then creates business in other areas, so it creates, you know, a domino effect of, you know, I suppose, you know, positive client relationships.
Definitely, yeah. We've definitely found that if you control that one area where you're smashing, you often get 1 to 2 times that amount in the surrounding area. So it's that, and what you've just said is very consistent through anyone like a Chris Gilmore, like a Tom Cullen, where they dominate like that. Hey, I'm interested for the crew to hear the story of that particular process when it's so saturating. You know, where you hear from the great Matt Steinwade how saturation marketing, you kind of want to get to that point of annoying, then dial it back a little bit. But that means if you're a little bit annoying to a fair few people, you're very, very annoying to a small percentage. Tell us about, first off, you've seen your fair share of complaints. You've seen a couple of, I remember one, you sent me a photo, no more, you know, on their letterbox they put your flyer and say no more. Tell us about your unique complaint handling strategy, and if you've got any case studies that you've told me about how you win them back over.
Well, because I live in the area where that I predominantly sell in, or you know, I live in the area where I sell about 20% of my stock, and I sponsor all the clubs in the area, the soccer club, the rugby club, the lawn bowls club, my signage is everywhere. So I'm quite known. And unfortunately, by virtue of chance, my house is pretty much smack bang in the middle of the suburb, of, you know, right bang in the middle. So I started to notice that I was getting noticed and recognised by face, and people were calling me by name who I didn't know their name. And I honestly, I would disregard the complaints when they first came about. But then, obviously, being a resident and being a seller, being an agent in the area, I had to look at a way to, I suppose, mend the people that got really furious.
Like I remember that was I don't know if that's the story you're going to tell, but the bloke at the bolo, and you heard someone over on the other side of the bar saying, "I hate the urban man," or words to that effect.
And that was exactly true. I used to play lawn bowls at the night hours. It's a great networking opportunity. And I heard in the back of in my peripheral that some guy was talking about me. He was saying he hated me. And my heart went, ugh. And you know what? That might have stopped me in the past. But I said to one of the guys who was playing, I said, "What's your friend's name?" And he said, I can't remember the guy's name for now. And anyway, I jumped into my database, found his address, left a flyer with a voucher for a free cup of coffee at the local, and a bottle of red wine, and an apology, and just said, "Look, I'm just a guy having a crack.
Nice.
A guy having a great. Here's a bottle of Saint Henri on me. It's not a cheap bottle of wine." Long story short, that guy ended up selling his property with me about 12 months later. So I think half of that process is about, because you become this image, you become the agent, or this idea, and people don't necessarily like that. But if they realise that you're dinkum, you're a fair dinkum person, and that stuff matters to you, and I suppose that's the key thing, is going, okay, well, I care. I don't necessarily care what people think about me, but I do my market.
Yeah.
And the effort, I suppose, just went, okay, well, maybe he's not what I thought he was, which was
And it ended up resulting, that one effort, mate. I love that story, that it resulted in a sold house,
it was
and a commission check.
$100 and something bottle of wine, and it was a $650,000 house at a couple of percent. So
do the math.
it was well
invested bottle of wine.
Yeah,
bro.
It was well worth it. You look further down the track and go, well, now I've sold. Just last weekend we took a property at auction. That's like the 8th house I've sold on that one street in the last 2 years. So,
so had you have let that one complaint stop you without that proactive step you take, how much might that have cost you? There might have been literally hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow. Because that would not have got me onto that street. That would not have got me to be able to door knock the street and say, hey, I've got a listing up the road. Wouldn't have got me to meet the owners at the open inspection. And I suppose it was, and it was an idea I got from you, but once again I took it and just added to it.
Yeah.
Just that little 1%er of caring what someone said, and I suppose paying the attention to it. Has paid dividends.
Yeah, magnificent, mate. Yeah. So a little masterclass in soul flyers here, guys. It's very nice. But I love that we've addressed that this business is never going to be without some negativity that we have to deal with because of the nature of our business. We're not exactly, as agents, not exactly loved. How have you seen your agency? Because your agency, I've met your people. We've worked together, year in, year out. And I've gotten to know the hearts and the souls of you guys, We've broken bread together. We've drank together and stuff. How have you gone about the whole real estate agent cliche? Yeah. I mean, what sort of other examples can we take away from how you do it to get seen as people as opposed to this idea of real estate agent wankers, or whatever you might want to,
Yeah, I suppose that's such a, there's a lot of answers to that question. And I suppose it's about getting not only the right people, but making sure they conduct themselves in the right
That's your
manner.
staff?
Yeah,
that's
staff.
your team.
Yeah. And look, we have everything we do in our office is systemised. Our selling system is systemised. Our communication system is systemised. We use Locked On. I'm a big fan of Locked On.
Yep. I've seen some of your trails, man. I use some of your examples in my training.
Yeah.
So,
and we've created these systems not only so that it gets an owner in a position of soul, but so it allows them to I suppose have the realisation that we're real people, and our guys get constant training on being able to talk to people, tonality, and I think you've always got to remember. I was reading a book the other day. To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink or something like that. And he said, if you're here in the book, he said, if you're reading this, with the end transaction in mind, close the book now.
Wow.
Because we're in the business of building relationships. And I suppose just driving that home from a cultural point of view has probably been the key to the numbers that we do. So,
yeah, cool, man. Where do you see, in wrapping up, just give us a quick take on your vision of how
yes, we still get our mail. So the letterbox thing that we've sort of spent a bit of time on is still part of an overall system. But where do you see as a, when I say younger, we're both shy of 50, we both consider ourselves relatively cutting edge. We're on the lookout for new ideas.
Yes.
So when you walk around the street and you see everyone with their eyes on their mobile phone, whether they're scrolling through a Facebook feed or whether they are on a Snapchat or something like it, where do you see that smartphone? What sort of initiatives are you taking on that device where we're not thumbing through? We're at a coffee shop, we're not thumbing through the local paper, we're thumbing through our feeds. What sort of ideas are you kind of implementing at a business level, at a personal salesperson's level on those devices?
It's got to be really broad, and I think if you're not on those things, you're really, really missing out. I know you and I talk often about Snapchat and going, what are we doing?
Yeah, what is this thing? I'm not the biggest fan, but my mentors tell me to be there, so I'm there.
What are we doing? What are we doing here? And I suppose everything takes time, but to gain traction. And recently we started doing broadcasting our auctions.
Right.
On our Facebook page.
Facebook Live or Facebook Live, cool.
Facebook Live, and we're in the area the other day, and you're not really noticing or finding out what the traction is because you might look at it and go, 51 viewers, whatever. But send out the sold text the week after, and I go, I watched it on your Facebook page. So,
nice.
So you're getting traction there, and I think the important thing about a mobile device is that people are constantly glued to it. And it's happening more and more and more. I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk as you are. Yep. And the thing about text messages for real estate agents is, what do you have to do with a text message? You've got to look at it.
Yeah, you've got to look at it to delete it. So
I think it really adds another element because it just gives us so many more layers. Facebook, Snapchat, Insta, but the technology around is such, our database system or portal that we use allows us to really easily do it. I mean, I was prior to coming here, I sent out 420 sold SMSs, but I suppose that's where I really see it going is we've got to as an industry stay ahead of the curve, or at least with the curve, and stay attuned to what is going on the mobile devices, because I've seen it. I've only been in this industry for 10 years, but I've seen, from year, say, 0 to 8, I think from 8 to 10, it's just, and you would probably agree, it's just gone, woo, and it has evolved massively. So I think that is the space where people have really got to attune really got to focus with laser beam focus, is what they're doing, on the handhelds, what they're doing on the smartphones, what they're doing on social media, how they look on social media. Are you blogging? If you're not, you should be. Are you using Facebook Live? Are you using all the tools that are so simple that are right at your fingertips? And the great thing about social is it's completely free. It just costs you a bit of time, and we've got a manager now who's looking after our social handles, because it just became too much for any one person to do. But that's where I really see it going is mobile marketing, which is great because it again brings costs down. But I don't think that will ever replace the necessity for someone line of sight for your brand or marketing, or whether your brand's your face or whatever, for that. So you've got to, I suppose, mix them all in the big cooking pot, and it's, people say it's not any one thing, it's the sum of all its parts. And I think as long as people are staying ahead of the curve and adding those and researching those and seeing what's going on in eastern states, or act locally, think globally, they say, and they'll be okay. But I really see that space evolving massively again in the next 2 years, probably to something that we're maybe not even seeing right now. So I think that's where it's really, as marketers, we've really got to have our focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you mentioned that, I was just sitting there thinking, you mentioned our mate Gary Vaynerchuk, who we just brought to this country. He is absolutely a beast. And his quote is, that's what we're here to learn today, is marketing in the year that we actually live in. Many in our industry are marketing in 2008, and that's if they're good. A lot of them are marketing in 1991 still.
Well, that quote I've taken that quote, those actual words, and that is now part of our listing kit. They're like, nice. It's quite easy. I've got a young guy that's working with me at the moment. He's been an agent now he's started in our support team, and he's been his own agent for a couple of months now. And he said, what's my point of difference? And I said, you market in the year that we actually live in.
I love
that. So that is everywhere on his marketing collateral.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah. So we're going into rooms now and lounge rooms and, putting that in front of people. And it's really surprising the effect that is having on people when they look at it and go, well, you guys must really know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because, even though we've got a lot to learn and it's still a long way to go and we're constantly evolving, people look at us like we're with it.
Yeah.
And we know what we're doing with social. And
so cool.
It is. It's awesome. And it's as I said, you don't have one. Use someone else, fake it till you make it. But that's where we're looking. We're marketing in the year that we're actually living in.
Yeah. Hey, while I've got you, and again, last point I promise, we'll get him on the way. But I've rarely seen anyone, and this includes the Gilmores, this includes the Spillanes, there's a whole bunch of people that took, and this might even be to yourself as marketing 1.0 or 2.0, certainly not the most cutting edge, but you've done more property videos than anyone I've ever seen. And yet we still see less than 10% of real estate that is listed for sale with a good quality property video, far less than 10%, depending on the area, but it's never more than 10% of listings have a property video. What's your take on the history, the evolution, and the current place, and perhaps even the future of video as it pertains to selling real estate?
Well, I think as bandwidth has increased, the ability to be able to market yourself via video has as well. 5-6 years ago, your normal bandwidth was 5-10 meg per second.
Yeah, it was quite prohibitive, wasn't it?
Buffering. Now you've got mobile devices that are pumping out 4G at 50, 60 meg per second. Where do I see it now? I see it now as extremely underutilised. There are so many things that you can get across in a video that you could not do in a book. And we just sold an example. Perhaps we just sold a property in a market where we never sell in. Rural market, country, average time on market 300 plus days. We went in there. We sold the one next door a few years ago. The owners rang up and said, we like the cut of your jib, we like what,
using those words. I like it.
we like what you did, and sure enough, we go. Well, let's just do a video and let's try and attract a specific style of person. And 43 days, boom, gone. Okay, they're happy. Sells above list price, away. But where it is now, it's underutilised. Where it is in the future, it's only going to grow. I don't know the specific number. But the number of people, video is just so relevant now on social. Like you flick open your Facebook page and it plays automatically.
Yep.
Just imagine that being your properties. People are scrolling through and you don't have to go play and then through to YouTube anymore. You open up and if you're on a Wi-Fi connection, it's rolling.
Yeah.
And away you go. So I think it will only evolve. I've seen some agents doing some really, really cool stuff. Jared Carmen.
Jared, my man. Jared's been a guest on this show. He's my man.
Did
you see the activewear one he did? I don't know if you saw that. I called him up and I said, because when that activewear video went viral, I called Michael Spillane and Jared Carmen because they're the only two nutters crazy enough to do it. And Jared went and did it. He had it done within a fortnight. And I thought, oh man, check that out, the Active House. It's unbelievable.
You've got the 3D virtual tours, your 3D, 360. 360 cameras, but not only what they can do, but the affordability and the accessibility. One of those cameras, like what it will get you, is not an expensive thing to purchase.
That's right. Yeah.
And what used to cost you $500 a throw soon will be able to be done in house. So I think you'll see a lot of agents start to actually bring a lot of their stuff, unfortunately, in for some other people, and I'm sure businesses like Platinum HD and that will look at the next evolution of what they do, and industry media. Those guys are at the forefront as far as I know. But 3D video tours, being able to swipe through, all of those things are just evolving, and once again, the last 12 months, even in that space, has just gone boom.
Absolutely,
and
yet less than 10% of real estate agents even get to level 1, and yet there are agents like yourself, like me and Chris, we were playing with those Oculus Rifts. Oh my God, you put the Oculus thing on and literally you are in the house.
You're in the house.
And you're being hosted by Chris, who is there in 3D, virtual reality, showing you through the house. It's incredible.
It's unbelievable.
And you turn and look with the thing on and you're looking behind you. It blowed my mind, you know.
I think a lot of it comes down to, and one thing I've noticed with agents is it comes down to not a lack of ability, but I suppose a lack of knowledge in being able to articulate what specific role that a single thing of marketing can play. Okay, this is what this is. This is what it will do, this is what it will increase. Because a lot of people will be afraid, and I notice it in the marketplace. You know, you're sitting in there, we're different to the eastern states. I don't know what's like VPA, you call it vendor paid. I mean, everyone pays here. You know, vendor paid advertising is just the norm here.
Yes.
There are a couple of agencies which don't do it, but they're you know, few and far between. But the marketing spend is really one of those things that I think gets overlooked. Like most people just go, I just want to bung it online. Just let me get it online and I'll be good. You know, but if you really sit there and I suppose explain and articulate what marketing powers that can have.
Yeah, the adding of value that video did to that rural property that you had, it would have added money. That few $100s added few tens of thousands perhaps to that property.
The people that came up, because they were moving from the coast about an hour away, Largs North, and they were a young couple buying a big rural property. I said, what are you doing? She goes, I just love the country. And I saw this big tree on the video.
Wow.
Now, I can't, you know...
What were the odds that was going to get captured on a photo shoot, perhaps?
And so we spent the next 20 minutes out there talking about a 450-year-old gum tree.
Wow.
You know, and it's... Maybe they still would have inspected it, but I guarantee you that made them hustle to get there.
Yeah.
And because they saw it, they could almost see themselves being there and living there. And, you know, you just can't transfer that feeling. I suppose that's what I look at. And if you can articulate that to someone, marketing is transferring a feeling.
Yeah.
Video just allows you to do that.
Yeah.
You know? It'd be like watching this and someone having a picture of you and I and then reading this transcript.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to happen.
That's right. It's going to be a very different feeling.
You know, but I think that's probably the key thing. And once agents are trained and capable of being able to go, well, this is what benefits this will play, because if you can do that safely, if you can do that properly, you can explain to people that all the marketing spend is what you put in. It protects the value in your home. You know, at a listing presentation, I'll say to people, you know, I look at marketing, and they'll go, you know, what, you know, look at me and I go, you're probably thinking Bill, aren't I?
Yeah.
And they go, yeah. And I say, look at it like travel insurance. You're protecting your interest in the home.
Yep.
You know, because, you know, anyone can put it on realestate.com, but can they tell you what these functions are? You know, and I think it's about having the confidence to be able to talk about that, because too many people, you know, sellers and people, you know, people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And they're not sitting there going, nah. The reason they're shutting down and not doing it is because you're not being able to explain it properly.
Articulate what the benefit is to them, not to, they think, they often think that this marketing thing is us palming off our bills on them.
Yeah, but you've got to believe in it.
Absolutely,
You've
100%.
got to believe. It's just like pricing. If you don't believe in the price or your ability to get a high price, everyone's stuffed.
Yeah.
If you don't believe in what you're selling, if you're like, oh yeah, we'll just...
Yeah, oh, well, I've seen some agents literally go out there and try and pitch vendor paid and all that, and then they sneakily stick their property up as an open listing with 3 agents.
Yeah.
They're in trouble.
Yeah, it's you know, they just don't know, and I think that's where that space needs to. There needs to be a lot of focus on going, okay, well, you know, I can talk about price, or every agent can talk about price, or I can talk about auction, but talk about marketing, learn to talk about marketing, learn what they actually do, the difference between advertising and marketing, what functions they play in selling a home. Because, you know, the other day I was talking to a guy and he said, this place will just sell itself. And I just laughed and slapped him on the back and I said, I haven't seen one do it yet. I haven't seen one do it yet. And,
well, not for the highest price anyway. Yeah, it'll sell itself, but the owner doesn't need you to do that.
But he looked back and said, you're the first person to say that to me.
Well, oh, so the owner said this?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant another agent.
Yeah.
So the owner said that.
No, the owner
yeah, well,
said that.
he's right. And if you want it to sell itself, you do it.
You know?
And it'll cost you 10%. You know, your $500,000 property will be worth $450. Off you go.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just belief in that going, okay, this is best for you.
Yeah.
This is best for the property, because they don't know what's best for it.
Yeah.
And if you can look at it and go, well that marketing, you know, we'll put it in front of this many people, we'll show this exposure, we'll have this effect.
Yep.
This is the effect that it has had in the past with case studies.
Yeah.
They will buy into that. Because once they know that you're just not making it up as you go,
Yeah.
That's a key point is saying, well, I'm not just making this up.
Yeah.
It's not my first rodeo. We've done this hundreds and hundreds of times over and over again, and it works.
Yeah.
Here's a complete list of people that say so.
Yeah, call anyone. I love it. All right, guys, we've taken so much of this guy's time. How's that for a masterclass? That's why you tune in to Breakthrough Agents. Dan Richardson, mate, thanks so much for hanging, buddy.
Wow. Well, there you go. I hope you liked the episode. If you liked that, then what you need to do is you need to subscribe. You need to get more of this craziness because we got more coming. I'm never standing still, and we've got so many more guests. We've got so many more strategies, more out-of-the-box thinking. So if you haven't subscribed, literally, you're like throwing away thousands of dollars. Because I tell you, if you haven't subscribed, you don't come back. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find you, I'm going to market to you, and I'm going to charge you for the very stuff that on this podcast we give away for free. So whack that subscribe button on whatever your favorite podcast weapon of destruction is, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.